Welcome back. Your time is 4:39 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, an exclusive report by the Pickthall House think tank has said that we are facing a last chance to control our borders, and said that after nearly 30 years of unprecedentedly high migration and 15 years of consistently broken promises, the British public have reached a breaking point. Well, I can now speak with the head of domestic policy at the Pickthall House, and that's Jacob Williams, who joins me in the studio. So the report, Breaking Point, Last Chance to Control Our Borders, says the public patience is running out, but migration numbers keep climbing. Our viewers will be well versed with the problem. In your eyes, Jacob, what's the solutions?
It's a very simple solution. We need an actual binding target to get migration down to net zero in the space of at most 2 years. And we've set out a very clear, very simple system whereby this will be implemented across all government departments, that this target will be legally binding, and there'll simply be a cap. So we'll estimate immigration numbers each year, each quarter, and there'll be a cap on the number of work permits and student permits that can be given out to ensure we don't exceed that cap. It's a very simple, common-sense solution. It can be implemented tomorrow if there were only any political will to do so. We're not seeing any political will from either Labour or the Conservatives. The only party taking an interest in Britain's broken borders is the party led by a British Muslim, or chaired by a British Muslim patriot who is himself an immigrant. And that's the irony of the situation that we find ourselves in.
You also say other solutions should be employers should be required by law to advertise jobs to UK residents first.
That's right.
British jobs for British
Absolutely.
people, echoes of Gordon Brown.
Common sense.
And also make sure when people graduate, foreign students, they must secure a job within 1 or 2 years in high-value sectors,
Yep.
or they get booted out.
Of course. It's ridiculous to allow students who then either are unemployed or are underemployed in non-graduate jobs to stay here on graduate visas. There's no economic case for this at all.
What happens, though, when you have a flu crisis and the NHS needs more staff in, say, January towards the back end of a financial year? I mean, a net zero target within 2 years, the Reform pushed it at the election last year. It is not... It's a great idea, and it might focus minds in the Home Office to make them deliver on controlling migration, but it's never going to happen, is it?
I think it's pretty simple. We're very able to train our own nurses. We have incredibly talented...
Take 7 years to train a nurse. 7 years to train a nurse, and you've got people dying because of flu crisis in hospitals.
We don't need 500,000 additional nurses every year. That's how many people you can bring in on net zero, because 500,000 people are leaving this country every year. It's very easy to make some small adjustments, prioritise the NHS visas at a certain time of year. We don't need these kind of numbers. There's simply no case for them.
I think that's the point. If you're still taking in 500,000 per year, you could choose who they were.
Absolutely.
And if there was a flu crisis, you could tailor your list to that. Same as Australia has a points-based system,
Yep.
which works well. They may need plumbers, electricians, doctors, and they make their list to be nimble, to be targeted, and that's, you're saying, is the way forward.
Of course, it's a common sense. I mean, we have a huge amount of leeway even at net zero. Remember, that's 500,000 people every single year.
Why hasn't a government done it yet, then? Why is this Tory government fought 5 elections and said they're going to bring net migration down to fewer than 100,000 and failed to deliver? Is it because they can't or they won't?
Oh, it's because they won't. The Conservative Party have absolutely no interest in reducing migration. After 15 years of systematic betrayal, lies and deceit, we had migration surge after Brexit when the excuse was finally removed. They gave up on their target of less than 100,000 a year deliberately. A whole network of libertarian think tanks who believe in open borders had huge influence over the Johnson administration. They decided that somehow the vote for Brexit, the most obvious vote for reduced migration in Britain's history, was in fact a vote for open borders with Nigeria and India. And they went ahead and deliberately increase the number of work permits for medium or low-skilled jobs.
Of course, since then, Karen Baden has said that was a mistake. We apologise for it. We'll get it right next time.
Well,
she won't give us a number. They will not say, no politician on the front line, apart from Nigel Farage, he's got 4 MPs, will say net zero migration, because it's almost impossible, because if all the farmers want someone, you've got manufacturing, you've got the NHS, running a government is not like running a company.
You're absolutely right, and yet let's think about who's actually influencing the Conservative Party. It's the wealthy elites who want cheap labour. They want to push down wages of British workers. That's one of the main lobbies that's been demanding this over the last 15 years. They don't care about British workers. They don't care about immigrants either. They're very comfortable sitting in Mayfair, where the only immigrants are domestic servants. They're not bearing the cost in terms of fractured communities, low wages. After this appalling show from the Conservatives, after the complete lack of credibility from Labour, the British public are turning to reform. We have these fantasies about a Muslim takeover. The only Muslim about to take over is Zia Yusuf at Reform. They're the only party anyone trusts.
So that's not going to happen. 4 MPs, they're miles away. They might target
4 years.
Yeah, it could happen. It could happen. But what they are. I think both main parties have failed on migration, and that's why a protest party like Reform can benefit.
And how would the optics look? It sounds good on paper. If you graduate, if you're a foreign student, if you graduate from British University, you've got 1 to 2 years to get a job. And if you don't, we're going to frog march you onto a plane, get you out of the country?
Well, you say you frog march someone onto a plane. I mean, it's very simple. Every country removes people by force if they're there illegally. Your visa's expired. If you don't leave, we'll make you leave. It's simple common sense. Nothing outrageous or authoritarian about that.
You've got Human Rights Act. I mean, I guess you have got Reform. I mean, Reform could form a government based on what you're saying, no question. But you have got issues like ECHR getting in the way of that, and people's human rights may mean that these policies can't happen.
I mean, this is a question of interpretation for the lawyers, but at the end of the day, the European Court of Human Rights has no business telling Britain how to control its borders. Europe is a continent that 70 years ago was half fascist, 35 years ago was half communist. We don't need to be taking lessons in human rights from European judges.
OK, fantastic. We have to leave it there. That's Jacob Williams, the head of domestic policy at Pickthall House. A fascinating report, breaking point, last chance to control our borders. Thank you very much for coming to the studio today.